Okay, today we're taking a trip back to the wonderful world of the mid-2000s, as I am going to get real nostalgic. Now, if you watch these videos regularly, you're aware that we have a Patreon, where the donations go toward the budgets for the videos. And like most Patreons, there are goals on there, as in things we'll do or make when we hit certain benchmarks. Now, one of those goals is that when we hit $250 a month, I will put a bunch of my old movies, like the ones I made in high school, online for patrons to see. Last week, we reached that goal, and so right now, a bunch of those old movies are up and on the Patreon. This is not like a ploy to get you to donate. Since I was already going back and digging out those old movies and ripping the DVDs and putting them online, I figured this would be a fun opportunity to just talk about them and show a bit of them to everybody. And if you really want to see any of the entire movies, it'll cost you $1. So, oh no. Also, this is gonna be really rough for me because I have not watched these in a long time. I talked a bit about this in the How to Become a Filmmaker video, but I started making movies with these like stop motion animated movies using Legos, and sadly all of those are now lost. But the first official live action short film I made was in the summer of 2004. That whole summer, my dad was paying me like $7 an hour or so to split firewood in the backyard, because I was saving up for the most important thing I could possibly want at that time, a portable DVD player. So anyway, after about a month of splitting wood all day, every day, I had this idea one night for a movie kind of based on that. It was a mockumentary about me training to become a lumberjack called Patrick Willems, Aspiring Lumberjack.
Hi, I'm Patrick Willems, and I'm an aspiring lumberjack.
So I wrote the whole script that night, and then I had my friend Nick come over, and we shot the whole thing in about a day. The movie is 18 minutes long, which is like 15 minutes longer than it should be, and it's a good representation of my sense of humor at the time because it's mostly really dumb visuals set to really dramatic music. Like the opening title sequence is this montage of me warming up with an axe like I'm gonna play sports, and it's all set to Maniac from Flashdance.
I am between will and what will be. She's a maniac on the floor.
And then since I had just seen Collateral before making it, I used the song from the club scene in that over this intense scene of me like fighting a piece of wood, like a log.
Yo, ready.
And of course, since I was a teenage film nerd in the mid-2000s, there's just a bunch of tracks from the Kill Bill soundtrack all over the place. Okay, I'm actually gonna watch some of this now. This is gonna be brutal. Well, I guess one good thing about looking at this is, like, as awkward as I feel on a day-to-day basis, I am clearly so much more awkward there. This is so dumb. I can't believe I made this. I think some of it is actually kind of funny, but it's drawn out so much and so awkwardly delivered that it's painful to watch. Also, I made multiple trailers for it because then, like still now, I loved making trailers. Like one of them is just set to Duel of the Fates over shots of me dramatically just splitting wood, and it's actually kind of funny. So when school started back up, I made DVDs of the movie. Actually, here is one that I managed to find. And there's all these special features on it, and I would loan it out to all these people in school, and soon like everybody saw it. And all these people wanted to be in my movies. And so one day in French class, my friend Tim and I, we brainstormed this entire elaborate story for a sequel called Patrick Willems, Aspiring Lumberjack Part 2, Axis of Fury. The script for this was like 45 pages long. While the first movie had one character, this had about 15, and every scene was a crowd scene. So this was just a giant Star Wars ripoff. Like in the world of this movie, lumberjacks were like Jedi, and I had a school of lumberjacks, and then my top student turned evil and went to the dark side of lumberjacking, where he put on a black flannel shirt. This was clearly high art. So what we would do to shoot this was I would get all of my friends, and my sister would get all of her friends, and they'd all come on the school bus with us after school and go back to our house, and I would make everyone sandwiches, and then we would shoot the movie. And what's important about this is it was the first time I worked with people who would become my main actors for years to come. Actually, some of them still are. Like, this was the first time I worked with Matt and with Chloe, and we never finished the movie. The whole thing was shot outside, and then winter came along and it got too cold to keep shooting, so we just stopped. So there's no actual movie to show you. The footage is still on mini DV tapes in like a box in my parents' house, but we did at least make this one teaser trailer, which is really ridiculous. It's all set to Firestarter by The Prodigy. Wow, that's quite a trailer. So after Lumberjack Part 2, I pretty much stopped acting in my movies because I was a control freak and I hated relinquishing control of the camera to someone. And also I was bad at acting and I didn't like doing it. So now in the spring of 2005, I made what was probably the most important movie I made during that entire period of my life. It was a half-hour buddy action comedy called Chef Lock and Wofson, the Movie. I thought it was really funny to put the movie on the end of it as if it was like an adaptation of popular source material. Now this movie was an excuse for me to just cram in everything I thought was funny or cool at the time. So there's like car chases set to music from Final Fantasy VII. Kung fu fights with ninjas. There's elaborate sword fights where I just ripped off Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon a lot. There's a villain with an eye patch. There's a dance sequence. And because this was 2005, we used the Numa Numa song in it, or as I learned it was called, Dragostea Dintei by Romanian pop group Ozone. I love that there's a moment in this scene where you can hear someone in a passing car shout dumbass at us. Looking at this movie now, it's obviously super rough, but I've got to say, I'm still pretty proud of that big final sword fight and also this throwing knife gag. By the way, the ninja throwing the knife, that's Paul, who has built basically all our props from the past couple of years. Back then, I didn't know what color grading was, but I saw that by changing the white balance, I could tint everything blue. So technically that was just having the wrong white balance, but I was like, whoa, it looks like Minority Report, cool, and so it stuck. So that year in high school, a few friends and I founded the Independent Filmmakers Club. And at the end of the year, we had this big film festival, and there we premiered Chef Lock and Wofson. So for the week leading up to that, the cast and crew and I launched this huge marketing campaign where we'd all have t-shirts that had the release date on it. We'd put posters up all over the school. We would screen the trailer in all our classes. So we just hyped the hell out of this thing. And then everybody in school saw the movie and people really liked it. This was like a blockbuster hit on a microscopic level because it was just the school and there were very few other movies people were making to compete with it. And of course, we made DVDs and sold these, which was technically illegal because this movie was filled to the brim with licensed music, but I didn't care. So then because Chef Lock and Wofson was a hit, and people demanded it, we decided to make a feature-length sequel. And making that, between the writing and then the shooting, took pretty much all of senior year of high school and then the summer afterwards.
Once every 200 years, a sequel comes along that is so much better than its predecessor that it must be 3 times as long. This is one of those movies.
If I'm being honest, the first day of production of Chef Lock and Wofson 2 is still probably the most fun day of filmmaking I've ever had. See, we were shooting the opening title sequence, which is this big musical number through Broadway, which is the main street in our town. And we needed a bunch of extras, so we spread the word, and we got like 30-something people. So we have this giant crowd for this huge dance scene where the 2 title characters are lip-syncing to Rock DJ by Robbie Williams.
DJ, 'cause you're keeping me up all night.
It was amazing. It was this beautiful sight to behold, and halfway through the shoot, someone called the police on us because Tim had a sword strapped to his back, and so 3 squad cars pulled up, and they questioned us and then confiscated the sword, and then we just carried on shooting with that one continuity error. It was a pretty great day. And so when we were all back for Christmas, I rented out the Saratoga Film Forum for a night to do the premiere. Over 100 people showed up. It was really amazing. And of course, we made DVDs and sold them again because that's what I did. I wanted everything to seem official even when it was really not official. So in hindsight, since this was 2006 and YouTube was brand new, if I was smart, I would have just been making short YouTube videos. But instead, I was making 90-minute long movies that I was only showing to people in my hometown. So it would have been better if I'd done things differently, but whatever. It was really fun. And so during my last year of high school, I made a bunch of short films as well, such as Physics Police, about an agency that polices the laws of physics. The The Amazing Adventures of Flash and Skip, a tragedy about men who fight giant lizards. Passion, a teen comedy that turns into a horror movie. And of course, our film noir adaptation of Hamlet that we made for AP English.
So Hamlet walked off across the field to meet Laertes, neither one of them suspecting the catastrophic events that would happen in just a few minutes.
So because we'd made 2 Shufflecock and Wolfson movies, and I, like any 18-year-old filmmaker, wanted to make a trilogy, the summer of 2007, we made Shufflecock and Wolfson 3. For this one, we upgraded the equipment. For like a year, I'd been saving up, and I bought the Panasonic DVX100, which was like the best you could do for cameras in the pre-HD world. So this one, it looked way better than 1 and 2, and watching it back now, it's slightly less painful, because I was not good at filmmaking at that point, but I learned a lot from the first 2, and so I'd gotten a little bit better. And watching this in 2017, I'm very proud that this movie has a lot of Nazis getting punched. So we were doing it before it was cool. The single thing I'm proudest of in this movie is this one workaround for a continuity error. See, we had to finish the movie over Thanksgiving break, and we shot most of it in the summer when everything is lush and green, and in November, it doesn't quite look that way anymore. So he explained the change in scenery with this one brief exchange.
Why are all the leaves dead?
Winter always comes sooner when Nazis are around.
And of course, at Christmas 2007, we did another big premiere for Shufflecock and Wolfson 3 and made more DVDs. Okay, I'm gonna cut this retrospective off here because after Shufflecock and Wolfson 3, there's this awkward area of like the movies I made during college that are still not good, but also not as endearingly rough as the ones from high school. So looking back at these movies, what's most important about them to me is that they were basically my film school. So while in college, I learned all about cinema as an art form and filmmaking craft, making these movies taught me all the really practical stuff about making movies. By deciding to make these feature-length films with no crew and no idea what I was doing, and being too young to know any better, I set myself up to encounter every problem you could possibly have during a production, and then having to deal with them. So getting kicked out of key locations, having actors with leg injuries who need to be in action scenes, actors showing up to set several hours late, people forgetting key props and costume items, running out of daylight, having the police show up, and my personal favorite, having to shoot a car chase, but the guy who owns one of the cars suddenly has to leave in half an hour. The key is you just actually do a car chase. So as much fun as these movies were to make, I'm most thankful for how they trained me to get really good at problem solving. Because in my experience, that's like 80% of what filmmaking is. Also, a fun thing is that about 95% of the people in those old movies make appearances at some point in videos on this channel. You can find almost everybody. So yeah, I've just been casting my high school friends for over a decade. Will I ever work with professional actors? Maybe.